the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. The show that gives you the lowdown on how to become a successful real estate entrepreneur. With more than 30 years of experience, America's top female real estate investor Dwan is an expert in financial freedom and turning dreams into realities. Now's your chance to become a Dwandernaire with the help of Dwan. Here's to a flaming hot foreclosure market with the help of Dwan. Cheers.
Hey everybody, so excited for you to be here for another episode of the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. And this is my Thursday session, and you know it's called Inside the Minds of Today's Millionaires. And we like to interview all kinds of people from all kinds of walks of life and find out how they got started or are on their path to success, and maybe something they say would be something that might help you. So I have a super exciting guest today, and I don't know much about him. So I'm super excited because when I don't know a whole lot about people, I have a lot of questions. You all know, inquiring minds want to know. So our motto here at Dwanderful is people before profits. So there's something that resonates with you. You are at the right place, and this is the right time. And my guest today is Frank Furman. So Frank, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dwan. How are you?
I'm so good. I am excited that you're here today. I have a lot of questions.
I am on me.
So we like to start up every show with drinks with Dwan. So what are we having today? What are you drinking?
I'm boring today because I'm still sort of working. I just have water. So
okay, well I have water too. This is my new kick. I'm on a smart water kick. So let's have a toast. So cheers to you.
Okay. Cheers.
You don't have it with you. That's okay.
The other side of my desk. There we go. I'll grab it.
That's okay. I have to stay hydrated all the time. So I'm on this super water kick now. I'm drinking this pH smart water. I don't know if I feel any smarter, but it says I do. So, so what we want to know is what you do now. Your name, obviously, Frank Furman, what you do, how we get in touch with you, and kind of basically like what's your deal. And then we just want to backtrack and kind of see how you got to be who you are. So what is your deal, Mr. Frank?
Well, my deal is, again, my name is Frank Furman. I'm the co-founder and chief growth officer at padsplit. And what we do, we're a two-sided marketplace, so an online marketplace like an Airbnb, that kind of thing. We focus on workforce housing. So unlike Airbnb, which is, say, fractional in terms of time, where you list a property and you've got one renter and another renter, one guest, fractional in terms of time. We're fractional in terms of space. So it's essentially individuals, long-term residents, but they're renting out rooms inside the house. So similar concept from there, though, except that we're very much focused on how do you kind of solve the affordable housing crisis and kind of be part of that solution. So we work with property owners on one side, property managers, that kind of thing, investors. And on the other side are renters, right? They're renting rooms. They're kind of members of the workforce. So that's what we do.
So, and how do people get a hold of you?
So my email address is we're super boring. It says frank@padsplit.com. And we're very easy to find. You can just go to padsplit.com and find us there.
I love it. So padsplit.com. So Frank at padsplit.com. Easy. So padsplit, so a pad where you're living and you're splitting.
Right. I mean, it's
a name. No, I did not. I for whatever reason, I thought it was more Airbnb, and I was like, oh, padsplit. That's really clever.
Well, I didn't come up with the name, to be honest. I'd have to give credit to our CEO Atticus. He was the one who came up with it. But yeah, that's the idea. So it's in some ways it's funny. It's an old idea. I'll talk with folks and I'll say, oh, I bet my kids would understand this. They get it in their age. And I say, no, who would understand is your grandmother.
Yeah.
Because this is how people used to live. We focus on singles, right? So it's singles, working people, people who have an income, but maybe they can't afford market rent, right? Because rents are rising. And, there's lots of people out there who are, they're working full time, they're trying to get by, but there just aren't a lot of affordable options, especially in metro areas. So what do? And in, the olden days, so to speak, but really, specifically before kind of zoning laws and really got into full force in the 70s, you'd have boarders, right? If you were a
Exactly.
unmarried man or woman, you would rent a room in somebody's house. You watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's Ma Bailey's
Yes.
house. So it's not and it's something actually, even just within our own lives, everyone kind of understands. When I was in grad school, I rented a room. That's what I did. No one thought it was odd. People live in student housing. It's one of those things. When people get older, sort of in their twilight years, it's golden girls, right? It's assisted living. People do it, but for some reason, in that middle, section of people's lives, when they're not in college, when they're not, having to share space for assisted living and so on, that seems very strange to us culturally. But really, it's something that's been around for a long time, and frankly exists in every major metro area today.
It does. My aunt, she's 95. 95. So way back up when she I don't know that she went to college, but some sort of training. And she wanted to go live in DC for a while, and she lived like what was called a boarding house.
Yep, sure.
And she still talks about it to this day. She's like, the best days of my life, I lived in a boarding house, and there was like 5 bedrooms, and it was all single women from all over. And to this day, so that is the most fun that she ever had, was living there with all these other single women, because back, 90, 75 years ago, a single woman just moving to a city by herself into a house or an apartment would just, at that time, would have been more weird.
Sure, yeah, it's scandalous even. In fact,
it was scandalous. I mean, until, I don't know, you're probably too young, but do you remember that show, That Girl?
Sure.
Okay, so That Girl, when that show came out, that was just like, a single woman living in an apartment in a big city. Oh my God, it really was sort of scandalous.
Yeah, or Mary Tyler Moore,
Mary Tyler Moore, all those shows in the era, that was like a really big deal. And
right.
So my aunt, even now, like, she's 95. She's all my boarding house days. She lived there for like 3 or 4 years, had a job, lived at the boarding house. They cooked the meals, and she shared a room.
Yeah.
Back then, you shared a room. And 75 years later, she goes, listen, I love my husband, I love my kids, but my best days were with all the other girls.
Yeah, it's funny. And one of the things, you talk about kind of the perspective of people before profits and so on, but it's interesting to me in that people, even when they're not in school, do this all the time, right? When I was young and getting my start, I rented a house and rented out rooms to my, split the rent with buddies of mine. Yep. No one thought anything of it, right? It was similar, same sort of thing. How do you drive down the cost? When you're getting your start professionally, you share space. Today, I share space. I have 6 people living in my house. It's not that I'm crazy or whatever. It's that I have a family. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But it's only one person's paying rent, unfortunately. But it's one of those things where that is how everyone shares space. It's actually very strange to have one person living in one unit, and it's very difficult to make happen economically. It's a lot of space. It's a lot of resources. One Wi-Fi bill is one Wi-Fi bill. It's a lot for one person. So the same sort of techniques that I've used throughout my entire life, whether it was, hey, I was getting my start in California and I was renting a house and sharing it with a bunch of guys and we're all sharing the rent, or today where I'm splitting it up really amongst my family. For some reason, if you're, my age, but single in a new city, you're not allowed to do that because that's just not how we do things culturally. It just seems sort of wrong to me. It just is kind of crazy. So, we're a big part of what we do is enabling that for people who maybe don't have the same levels of sort of social credibility or social network, that kind of thing.
So how old are you?
I am 36 years old.
You are just a pup.
I guess so. I don't know. Yet I have far more gray hair than you do. So I don't know.
Oh, no, honey. See all this pink? It should cover the gray. If this was off, people would be frightened about how gray my hair. You know what? I didn't even really know I had that much gray hair until COVID. I couldn't get my hair colored for months. And I had you get hair. And I was like, gosh, Joe, what is all that? And I was looking in the mirror, like, oh my God, all my freaking hair turned gray. So
my kids point out each one on my head. So I'm constantly reminded. So
I found my first gray hair when I was in my 20s. It was a sad day. My hairdresser yanked it out. It's like, why would you tell me? First is in the back. I never even knew it was there. And why would you yank it out? Because I don't know, that old wife stuff, you pull one, two grow back.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I was terrified. I didn't have to. Now, let me ask you a question, because I really find this is so interesting. Through my entire 20s, I always had roommates. I always lived in at least a minimum of a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom house.
Yep.
Always. I don't think anywhere in my 20s without roommates that I can recall, like never. So when you are putting people together, how do you put 3 or 4 people in a house together that don't want to kill each other?
It's funny you should say that. The short answer is, it's not necessarily intuitive, is we actually don't try and match kind of proactively. There's no kind of matching algorithm, that kind of thing. And it's interesting because most people ask, how do you do that? How do you, find this person who's tidy and this person who's not, and all those things. And, it's funny, the latest research, and actually if you talk to any, or I should say most sort of student housing operations, you talk to universities, we talk to probably a dozen, they actually don't match people anymore either. They make you fill out a survey so you feel like you're doing something, but they actually just throw people in.
Just throw them in?
They throw them in. And the reason is, it's almost like the logic behind an arranged marriage. If you meet someone, you think, oh, this is good, you get kind of high expectations, like, oh, this has been scientifically joined and this will work, and like, oh, it's meant to be. Whereas if you're just kind of thrown in, it's like, I don't expect this thing to be perfect. Like, I'm gonna have to make do, and we're gonna have to make compromises, and I'm not expecting to find best friends. And one of the interesting things about, to your question around people trying to kill each other, it actually is it's not as bad as you think. I mean, look, not all padsplit members are best friends, far from it. But what they are is strangers when they start, right? And, as I've been a real estate investor and, all these things. And, when you think about when people fight in our lives, husbands and wives fight, boyfriends and girlfriends fight, brothers roughhouse, people who know each other and have a relationship fight. Strangers almost never fight. If you think about a hotel, you're still sharing certain space and amenities, the gym and, common areas. There aren't that many fights in hotels. And when there are, it's a husband and a wife in a room. It's a boyfriend and a girlfriend in a room. Those are
true, though. I stay at millions of hotels. I've never just yelled at anybody in a hotel.
People
my kids, I'm like, pick up that plate and bring a dishwasher.
Exactly. So people are, strangers are passive aggressive. They may be petty. They may not like each other. They may say things behind each other's back. We deal with all of that. That's fine. We have a call center set up to handle that kind of thing. But and again, I'm not saying all houses have always been perfect harmony, but for the most part, strangers don't have big issues because they don't really have enough to fight over, right? So someone eats someone's peanut butter, they might be mad. Okay, fine. We have a rating system to sort of handle that kind of thing. But it's it's definitely not an aspect of, hey, oh, these people are coming to blows all the time. It's just, they're strangers.
I love this concept. So I'm just going to ask you, because I don't know a lot about it. So I'm just going to ask you a lot of questions that I feel like people would want to know.
Yeah,
so say you have a 4-bedroom house.
Yeah.
Is there a person that comes in and cleans, or is there like an outside person, like, hey, I'm going to come in once a week and clean and do this and that? Or are the people like, okay, here's your checklist, everybody keeps their own areas clean?
So a little bit of both. So what most
as I love this idea. I'm already thinking like, gosh darn, I've got some places I could put like college students in there.
Yeah, exactly. So so the answer is both to your question. So on one hand, what most hosts, so the property owners or the property managers do is, and what we recommend is sending through a cleaning person infrequently. Call it once a month, just to do common areas, light sort of freshening up of the areas. And the idea is you want to clean the common areas where it's kind of everyone's mess. It's not anything urgent, but you just kind of want someone to touch them. So, wipe down the toilets, clean the countertops, 30 minutes in and out, low cost, whatever. We've actually experimented with more frequent cleanings, and it actually makes places less clean. And the reason is people leave stuff for the cleaning person.
The cleaning person, yeah.
Right. So what we've kind of evolved to in terms of how we communicate and how we kind of hold people accountable is almost all the cleaning has to be done by the people in the house, right? No one's taking out the trash for you. No one's doing the dishes for you. No one's cleaning your room. You're not your mom. So we've evolved all these policies. So we have, and again, most of this we've stolen or, copied from other people. But We have a policy called Sink Zero.
Admittedly,
Right?
I stole this, but here's what it is.
Yeah, we don't invent much. We just try and make it work. But so Sink Zero, for example, is one of our policies. And again, not that it's always perfectly followed, but the idea is there's never anything in the sink. If you use a pot, you clean it on the spot. Nothing sits in the sink, nothing soaks. You want to soak a pot, do it in your room. The sink is always clean because one pot that's soaking means a second pot can be in there, which means a fourth can be in there, which means a dish.
Then you get a sink this high full of dishes and nobody wants to tackle the whole pile.
Exactly. So, always the sink is always empty. You can wash your pot in it, but it's always empty. It goes from there because otherwise it stacks and then you get bugs, you get all these issues. Yep. So you build in these kind of mindsets where someone can say, oh, well, I was just leaving it in there. It's like, hey, the policy is Sink Zero. That means nothing. It means nothing.
Sink Zero. I'm going to use that when my kids come to visit me.
I've tried it in my house. It doesn't work. My kids are too young. So
my kids are all adults, are all in their 30s, but it's like they come up here and they eat and whatever, and then they just like, hello, do I look like the maid over here? Why are you leaving this dishes in the sink?
Sink Zero. I'll send you a poster to hang over your sink.
I love Sink Zero. That is because that's how I am. I use it, put in the dishwasher. Nothing sits in my sink. I can't stand. Exactly. I hate a sink of dishes. Like it's my biggest pet peeve of all the houseworking chores is a sink full of dirty dishes.
Preaching the choir.
Ugh. I have to get on my husband. I'm like, hey, stop putting that fork, put it in the dishwasher. Ooh. I'm like, dude, we've been married 20 years. So like, why am I still having to tell you this? Why am I still having this conversation?
I hear you.
I love Sink Zero. So tell me some other policies there.
So, that nothing that you wouldn't kind of thought of. Quiet hours, obviously a very important part of it. Some of it is just really around the layout of the house. So, we have a motto. This isn't really a policy, it's more of a philosophy, but the philosophy is bad things happen on couches, right? So when you're setting up a house for this kind of arrangement, most investors, kind of the classical landlord mistake or property owner mistake is you think of the house as your house that you're going to be living in. And the answer is it's not. It is for your customer. You need to think about your customer, who this renter and is what they want. So again, traditional rental, okay, fine, a couch, whatever, living room, fine. But for a co-living situation, couches are problems, right? You can imagine our kind of median customer who's a 38-year-old woman who's taken the bus back from her job and, as a security guard or, working in a restaurant. She comes back, after a long day of work, it's at night, she's coming back. And she walks in the door and there's the couch and some guy's sleeping on the couch with his shirt off, or two people are fighting over the remote, or someone's let their brother crash on the couch, or people are making babies on the couch. It's all bad things happen. Yeah. So we don't do couches. If you were listing a property on padsplit and you said, oh, here, I want to do this living room, I would say, terrible idea. Turn into a bedroom, or you can put a dining area. That's fine. It's more respectful posture. It's easier to clean. All those things are fine. But people can share a meal. That's a productive engagement between two people in a house.
Yeah.
But soft surfaces, people eat spaghetti on the couch. It's a mess. No. Yeah. Couches. Another example is bookshelves.
I love this. So is there like an actual living room with chairs, or is it like if you want to chill, it's in your room?
Pretty much in the room. I mean, what we found is that people want privacy more than community in the houses. So, hey, we like to have a sort of dining area. That's great. Oftentimes it's just in the kitchen because it's easier to clean. It's like, hey, I'm cooking here, I'm gonna eat here. I prefer a breakfast bar or breakfast nook to like a separate room. So that's sort of one aspect of it. And one of the things about affordable housing is, the secret is to start with affordable housing, so if you can monetize that living room that can be turned into a bedroom, well, it makes it more profitable for the owner and more affordable for the renter. So, you probably ought to do that if you can kind of make it work. Obviously it needs to meet code and all that kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of what we do. Bookshelves are another example. I'll talk to an investor and I'll say, what are you doing with this bookshelf? And they'll say, well, I like books. I'm like, I like books too, but I dare you to stick your hand back behind that bookshelf and, you'll find a candy wrapper and it'll be dusty and all stuff. And it's like, look, this isn't your home. People they're going to be here. Maybe they're here for a year. They shouldn't be
Yep.
bringing a bunch of books. Common areas are hard to clean. You want to make them easy to clean. They're
Yep.
hard to hold people accountable. You want as much areas accountable to individuals, their rooms. So, you want to think about it in terms of, what am I really solving for? What do people want? They want a bed. They want access to the kitchen. They want access to a bathroom.
Yep.
Those are the things that they want. That's what they're willing to pay for. They're trying to save money, right? This isn't an Airbnb. It's not a vacation rental. It's not for family. It's for singles.
Yep.
So how do you think about their needs? Focus on what they're willing to pay for and what they desire, and then kind of take out all the extraneous stuff. You want it to be clean, safe, functional, but it doesn't need to be fancy. You don't need a library. It's kind of what are your basic needs?
I got it now. Just so with padsplit, you guys do this nationwide.
So we're not totally nationwide yet. We've expanded 8 cities this year. We'll probably be essentially nationwide by the end of, within the next 12 months, really.
Nice. So give me an example of one city that you're in.
So we're headquartered in Atlanta. It's our biggest market today.
Okay, so let me just say, so I have a 4-bedroom house in Atlanta.
Yep.
And if I hey, listen, I'd like to rent out each of my bedrooms, I would call padsplit and say, hey, I would like you guys to manage my house. These are my 4 bedrooms. Or do you guys actually buy the houses and rent them?
So we technically neither buy nor manage. So we're like Airbnb. So the owner is responsible for managing the house.
So I would call you guys and say, hey, this is Dwan. I got a 4-bedroom here in Atlanta. It's 2-story. I have 4 empty rooms. And you would essentially rent my rooms for me. And I take care of my actual house. You're not property managing and renting.
Yeah, what we would likely do, we have an ecosystem of preferred vendors, and we would probably say, hey, here's a couple of companies who'd be happy to do it turnkey for you, and they can, whether it's the renovations or the actual management of the house, they can kind of take it over for you. If you need a property manager, if you want to do it yourself, that's fine too, and this is how you do it, because some folks want to do that too. But yeah, we essentially act as that platform. So we think of the 4 Ps. So in terms of the division of responsibilities. So
Okay.
First P is payments, right? We handle all of the payments, payment processing. The residents pay on our platform. We do all the collections, right? So if someone's behind, we're the ones chasing them. And then we aggregate. You think about it. You have 6 people in a house. They're paying weekly. You might have 30 payments in a month. We're aggregating that all into one payment for the landlord. So, okay, so we handle all the payments. Second P is people. So again, all that, hey, we have a 24/7 call center, all that kind of interpersonal stuff. Dwan ate my peanut butter. Frank looked at me funny. All that stuff comes to us.
They were watching me.
Yeah, I know, right? We have a team that's trained to de-escalate those situations. You can rate one another, and sometimes it means to transfer, right? Sometimes that's a release valve. Part of our value proposition to the residents is they're not tied into a year-long lease, right? They can sometimes, co-living doesn't work for people, or they have job churn, which is much more common in this demographic. They need to, they're working on the other side of town now. Okay, maybe they want to be on a house on the other side of town to cut down on their commute. So okay, anything people, and anything platform, right? So I forgot my password, or how do I do this or that, and all the lease up, right? So also the people. So we handle all the marketing. We're handling the lease up for folks.
Okay, so we have payments, we have people,
and platform.
Fourth
P is property. So anything that touches the property is on the host, which again may be the property owner or it may be their property manager. We're agnostic as to who it is. Just like with Airbnb, the host may be a property manager, maybe the owner. It makes no difference. So same with us. But of course, we're happy to refer you to property managers who are accustomed to doing it. But so, hey, there's a leaky sink, that goes to the property manager. There's a ticketing system, they handle the sink. If it's, hey, Dwan left and now someone new is going to be moving in, they handle the room turn. Okay, fine. So that's kind of how it's divvied up.
I love this idea. So the other part of my question, let's just say I am in Atlanta and I'm in is it called Buckhead?
Yep, sure.
Okay, so we're saying, because my cousin lives up there. Actually, I'm gonna have her contact you after we talk, because she's got a house she's trying to rent out the rooms and she's not having any luck at it. So This is the part I'm just like, oh my God, you're in Atlanta. This is perfect. So I have a 4-bedroom house in Buckhead. I don't know, it's $300,000 house. I have 4 bedrooms. How much would I get how much would someone pay per bedroom?
Well, so it's interesting because Buckhead is probably the nicest neighborhood in town, and you aren't buying for $300,000 in Buckhead, but maybe a parking spot, but
Well, I know it's way pricey. So pick another area like
yeah. Well, so
I
sure.
can't think of anything else.
Just call it West Atlanta generally, or
Okay, West Atlanta.
West End, or DeKalb County, or something.
Oh,
like
DeKalb. Yeah. I know that area too.
So in Atlanta, we're generally averaging about $700 a month. Now it's billed weekly, so call it $150 a week to rent the room.
That's not bad though. So say I'm in Atlanta and I'm in West Atlanta, I can basically pay about $750 a month. And there's cable, a refrigerator, a dishwasher, there's a kitchen area, I have my own private room. That's really super affordable. That is really it's a great idea. It is a really great idea.
Yeah, that's the idea. Is it's just a lower price point. So, typically it's really hard to find an apartment for less than, say, $1,000.
Yes.
And when you do, especially on the lower end, Class C, you need 1 month security deposit. You typically maybe need to do first and last month's rent, that kind of thing. And then you're paying your utilities. So you're probably more at $1,200-1,300 a month. For us, we're at a lower price point. It's all bundled in, so you're paying one bill.
Yep.
Some of that is, it's a really around, again, making things work for our customers, in that, one of the challenges you have around evictions and affordable housing is, you got a lot of bills, and
Yep.
it's different things. And landlords are kind of lazy oftentimes, right? And I
ask my manager all my apartment, like, do not be calling me about anything. Just call the manager. I don't even tell people now that I even own the property.
Well, sure. And then, but you probably collect on the first, right? That's how all landlords are, right? Rent's due on the first. And you do that because it's easy for accounting. And it means the first week of the month, you focus on collections and you don't think about the rest of the month.
Uh-huh.
Now, the problem is people tend to pay bills sequentially, especially if you're more paycheck to paycheck. So in particular, kind of workforce, lower income folks, they'll pay the bills as they come in. Now, if you're familiar with Rent-A-Center, the kind of furniture rental place, they bill at the end of the month because they're smart, right? And so they'll bill on the 28th or 29th. Utilities tend to bill whenever you set up the service. So what people will do is they'll say, okay, well, here's my bill for my couch and chairs. I'll pay that bill. It came on the 27th. Oh, here's my gas bill. Well, I don't want the gas to go out, so I'll pay that bill. And then on the 1st, the rent bill comes and they're like, well, actually, I don't have any money. It's like, well, now that furniture is going to go out on the street, you're going to get evicted, all these issues. And if you unpack a lot of evictions, that's kind of what's behind is this sequencing. So we bill weekly, and we actually set up the technology that people can set their bill date on their payday. So if they get paid on a Wednesday, they can get their bill to come on a Wednesday.
Nice.
Because if it's easier, and the idea is, when's the 1st of the month? Well, I think it's today the 1st. I think it is tomorrow. I don't even know. It's really hard. But when's Friday? I always know when Friday is.
Everybody knows, yeah.
So the idea is to make it as easy as possible. And then it's one bill. So it's furnished units, furniture is included, all of your utilities are included. So it's really a matter of how do you make it as easy as possible to pay the one big bill to kind of keep you current. And then we do credit reporting. And because it's weekly bills, people who oftentimes are thin file can improve their credit score really, really quickly because they're getting 0.3 times as many data points for those as a monthly rent payment. And actually, most landlords don't report to the credit bureaus because, it's a pain and there's a little bit of incremental cost. So in particular, smaller landlords or single family rentals don't report because why would you? So you don't even get the benefit that you would as a homeowner of building credit over time. Even if you're a perfect tenant, you've paid all the time. But that's something we do and provide at our, as our expense.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I've been doing investing for 30 years. So I know just thousands of investors. And I know so many people that do like special needs housing. They'll have like a 4-bedroom house and each person in the room has some sort of a special need where they can live in a group, but they can't live alone.
Yeah.
And I know hundreds of people that rent out in college areas and rent out per bedroom and have the parents sign the lease and be responsible for the wild kids that are in college. But
Yeah.
this is like the first thing I know of where it's just people, sort of like the old days of, of a boarding house where you have a room and you have all your. I love this idea. You need to be nationwide.
We're going to be soon enough. We're getting there. We're launching markets kind of almost every month now. So
Nice. All right, guys, you heard it here first. Pad split has to be nationwide. So in order for that to happen, you all have to go over here and get involved and think. So how would a homeowner like me, how would I work with you? I just call up and say, hey, here's the house, and you guys just take it, and that's it.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, we our sales and implementation team, they work with people, even oftentimes pre-acquisition, right? People will call and say, hey, I'm interested. I want to get started. I got money in one hand. How do I turn this into, money coming in, so to speak? So we'll connect them with brokers and agents and kind of help them build a buy box and all that piece. And yeah, I mean, as far as markets, I mean, we're very intentional about which markets we go into and how we go into them, because we want to go in with an investor who's going to be successful. I mean, our growth engine is investors having good outcomes. When that happens, they do more properties, they tell their friends. And if they do poorly, they're never going to tell anybody, or they're going to tell people that we're terrible. So, we like to set people up for success. But I mean, even in a market that we're not in, say Los Angeles, if an investor came to us tomorrow and said, hey, I want to do this, here's how we're going to get it done, we would launch in Los Angeles tomorrow. It's not a big lift for us.
You guys have the formula down pat.
Yeah.
You just need to expand. Now, how do you let people know that you're out there? Because to be honestly, I did not know what padsplit was. So how are you letting people know that you're in that area? Like if they're in Atlanta, how are you letting people in Atlanta know that you're there?
Yeah, so in Atlanta, we a lot of people know who we are because we have more co-living units in Atlanta than any company in any city in the country, in any single market. But in new markets, so there's the two sides of the marketplace. On the resident side, a lot of it's through kind of digital advertising and so on once we're in a market, but a lot of it's also kind of word of mouth. So over half of our residents are referrals. So that's part of why we want to go into a market with kind of a critical mass of units so that you can get that flywheel turning, because that's kind of where you get a lot of the benefit from. Because they're telling people at work, they're telling their friends, and kind of bringing in new folks. On the landlord side, we have a few different ways. I mean, one are outlets like this, candidly. This is a sales and marketing opportunity for us, is to reach your audience and so on. So we certainly do a lot through kind of earned media. I talk to a lot of RIA groups, kind of conventions and trade shows that are real estate investor focused. We don't do much marketing on that front, really, because, kind of traditional marketing, because it's a relatively complex model and it's different enough to most people that you're not going to see a billboard and think, oh, perfect, now I'm going to do this and plunk down a bunch of money with this startup. So it takes a conversation. So that's why we like podcasts. That's why we like kind of webinars and talking to investor groups. And, this fall, and actually, if any listeners are in a real estate investment association, would love to kind of add you to the road show. I travel, maybe not well, but I will
get a passport set up nationwide and you can just travel and stay at your places.
Exactly. So,
are you guys in Denver?
So we're not in Denver today, though will likely be relatively soon. We've actually had a lot of really productive conversations with local kind of zoning officials and that kind of thing in Denver. So
just to let you know, I run the Colorado RIA, which is the Denver Real Estate Investors Association, my husband and my son. So I'm going to put you in touch with them because we're still online. They have not brought the RIA back live just yet. Sure. So it's still meeting online, but we do workshops all the time. We have guest speakers come on all the time. And I know 50 investors in Denver that all have rentals that would love to have you guys in Denver.
Yeah, no, we're very excited to be in Denver. It's really just a matter of time at this point. But yeah, I would love to speak to the.
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna have my husband reach out to you because I could hook you up with 20 people right now that all own rentals that would love to have them all split out like that, because it's so much more money per house. Right. Like it's
Let's
so
pause
much
the podcast right now and do that. No, we can do it after. We can do it after.
I love it. So you work for the company.
That's right. Yeah.
So what did you do before this? Like, who was Frank? Like, I don't know. You're 36. So what were you doing like when you were 20?
So when I was 20, I was at the Naval Academy. So I graduated from the Naval Academy, studied aeronautical engineering. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Um, then I went to grad school at Johns Hopkins, studied applied physics. And then I was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. So kind of my
Wow, thank you for your
20s.
service.
Thank you. So yeah, I was commanded platoon and company levels. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I worked in
Wow.
Yeah, it's obviously a lot. If Afghanistan has been back in the news recently
Oh,
for
every
less
day.
than great reasons, but it's been in some ways nice in that it's been an opportunity to reconnect with a lot of guys who I haven't talked to in a while. I mean, I was last in Afghanistan 10 years ago, so 2011
Wow.
was my last deployment, and guys are sending around pictures. I'm like, oh, who's this young guy, pre-kids and that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's been good. But yeah, I left, did that, was in the Marine Corps for 7.5 years. And then I was living in DC. I worked at the Office of Naval Research. So I managed a portfolio of R&D programs for the Marine Corps and the Navy. And
Nice.
then I left and moved to London. And that was probably, I guess, 2014. And I took a job with McKinsey Company, the big consulting firm. So worked in London for a couple of years. We had our first child then. Kind of worked across a bunch of different industries: pharmaceuticals, private equity, Ministry of Defense. Just odds and ends. And then we're having a second child, so we decided to move out of our tiny little flat, and we moved to Atlanta. And I guess
You were from London to Atlanta.
That's right. Yeah,
Nice.
5 years.
So after being in the naval, and you said you studied physics,
Mm-hmm.
and so you are super smart too.
I don't know about that, but we're trying.
And all that in Afghanistan, and moved to London, and you ended up back in Georgia. So how did you end up with padsplit?
So kind of during that time, so I've been married now almost 11 years.
Nice.
And my wife, we met at the Naval Academy, where she was actually in the Marine Corps as well.
Oh,
But I got to know one of her brothers. So she has 3, but her older brother, Atticus, has always been in real estate. And so they're from New Orleans, but he'd been in Atlanta for a while, and we'd moved to town. And I'd been investing through his previous business for years. So he, built this string of companies that were very successful, and built, a real estate investment company and a general contracting company, hard money lending. And so I knew about what he was doing, but I was always passive. I was kind of moving around. I'd moved 9 times in 9 years.
wow.
So I was looking for a way to kind of deploy some capital and something interesting and kind of help him out. But come 2017 or so, he'd more or less handed off the day-to-day of his business to other people, and he was kind of bored. And I'd left consulting and moved to Georgia Pacific because my wife wanted to go back to work, and I was traveling all the time prior to that. So I was bored. I went from working 60 hours a week to maybe half that.
Yep.
So we'd meet up, and he'd say, I've been doing this sort of thing, this shared housing idea, this co-living idea for years. There's challenges, but I think the time is right. As we talk about it, you notice how technology has changed. Now everyone has smartphones, and you don't need to worry about cash payments. You can do it all electronically, and controlling the utility bills is much easier with smart thermostats. And there's all these things are kind of coming together at the same time as the kind of national conversation around affordable housing had really kind of amped up and become at the top of people's minds. So yeah, we co-founded the business. We have a third partner who's actually really the smart guy, who's a PhD in physics and went to Stanford, and he's like that's John O'Brien. He's like the smart guy in the trio. But yeah,
I don't know. You guys all sound pretty smart to me, and you served in the military, so we already love you for that.
Well, yeah, we kind of started there, and from that started hiring people in kind of 2018. We're up to about 100 people today, 90.
Wow.
And so been kind of growing apace since then. But yeah, been kind of going from there since
Gosh,
those.
I love it, Frank. I'm so happy that you came on my podcast today. I love your concept, And I love your story, and I love that you served for the country and that you're doing this thing to really to help, because a lot of people, well, we all know a lot of people are really in crunches right now, and didn't have to make mortgage payments for a cajillion months here. And
Sure.
there are people all over the place that are going to get displaced now because they can't catch up. They can't make the loan modification. They're not working. They're not going to be able to. And a lot of people are going to find it difficult to even get their own apartment by themselves. So if ever there was a thing that's coming to market at a really opportune time, it is padsplit.
Yeah, we think so. It's funny. When we
I
started,
think so too.
hey, we thought the market was so hot in 2017 and 2018. Like, you can't just buy traditionally. The cap rates are dropping and all this thing. We were maybe ahead of it, but we always viewed this as sort of a counter-cyclical business, and that, when times are good, or actually maybe cycle invariant business, but when times are good, rents are being raised.
Yep.
There's, that's tough. And when times are bad, well, people are being pushed down out of traditional housing. People are working to save money. People are tightening their belts.
Yes.
So the good of affordable housing is that there's always demand for it. The bad, of course, is that there's it's hard, and that's kind of the business we're in. But yeah,
like as a single woman, if I was moving to a new city and I found this padsplit, I think I would just I feel like I would feel safer in a house with other people. I'm not living completely alone, but I still am. But I don't have to worry about I don't know. I feel like I would feel safer just having a couple roommates and other people in the house with me too.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because some people think almost the opposite, where they say, hey, that's fine for guys, whatever, guys don't care, they're animals. But, as a woman, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want to live with other people. And look, personal preference, that's fine. People can do whatever they want. But actually, I kind of lean with you where we tend to be slightly, have more women than men on average. And I think part of it is exactly that you're a single woman. Hey, do you really want to handle lawn care? Like, hey, the lawn care is going to be handled. Do you want to be handling it? Like, hey, that's going to be handled. You kind of have some of the help around the house if you need it for that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's obviously, people want different things, and that's fine. We're not all things to all people, but
but you're a really good thing. And the market's crazy. The timing is so amazing right now because, I've been telling people since all this COVID stuff started, like, listen, there's going to be massive foreclosures. Not everybody's going to be able to catch back up, and not everybody's working, and not everybody's going to qualify for a loan modification. And people are going to be really looking to rent. And as a single person, like my both daughters are in their early 30s, they can't go live in some nice fancy high rise in Denver because they're $2,200 a month for a place this big. It's like 750 square feet. It's like $2,000. It's like, well, who can live there?
Yeah, you're right. And you kind of bring up another point. I mean, obviously Denver is one of the hottest markets in the country. And, we're take Atlanta as a sort of another example where prices have gone up a fair amount. But, if you're a developer, here to build a new apartment in the city of Atlanta, you need 760 square feet and a parking spot. Well, a parking spot in the city costs $30,000, and 760 square feet is actually a lot of space. It's almost, if you've lived in New York, it's a comical amount of space.
No, I know. My daughter lived in an apartment down here. It was 500 square feet. And I remember thinking, like, who can live in that? But when you went into the apartment, it was laid out really well. I had to wash everything in their unit, and it was laid out so well that it felt bigger than it was.
Yeah, so it's a lot. But if you're a developer, you're a builder, concrete costs what it costs, piping costs what it costs, the land costs what it costs. Why would you ever do something lower end or more affordable when, what, you add granite, you add a pool and now you can charge double, of course you do that. So all the development is at the higher end. And in a place like Denver, which is desirable, and a lot of people, choosing to live there and moving there, of course, you wouldn't build anything that's going to rent for less than $2,200 a month.
No.
You can't make the deals pencil. So
we are going to get you in Denver. I am calling it right here. You're hearing it first. These guys are expanding to Denver. They just don't know it yet.
I know it, but let's make it happen.
I mean, we know we've had the RIA for, I don't know, like 5 years now. We literally know every everybody. So just something quick about you. Tell me your favorite band of all time.
My favorite band of all time. That's a really good question because I think of myself as being like a really liking really eclectic. Like I'm much more like one song from one person, and but I like a little bit of everything. But like, see, if I had to pick one band of all time, I mean, I love Billy Joel's music. I love I like all old stuff. I was never like made in my own time. Like the '90s alternative that I would have liked, and as like a kid was
Yeah.
kind of long.
You gotta name one now. Everybody's got to pick one.
Yeah. Okay. So I would go with Billy Joel. For kind of like mass, songs likability.
I like Billy Joel. And you can tell a lot about people by the kind of music they listen to. Billy Joel's good. He tells a lot of stories and songwriting, and he's got really good music.
Yeah. Who's yours? Who's your favorite band? I need to learn about you.
Well, so I graduated high school in 1977.
Okay.
So in those days, we had bands like Queen, Styx, Aerosmith, Journey. Like that was kind of the deal. And I always loved Styx.
Mm.
It's my favorite band of all time. They were very sort of a little bit gospel opera, not just like hard rock, and Queen, but Styx and Queen, they were like my favorite bands.
The '70s might not have been the best era for lots of things, but it was great for music. No way around.
I tell you what, we had the best. And I was able to go to concerts. As soon as I turned 16 and I could drive, I went to every single solitary concert that ever came through Dayton. And I mean, in the '70s, I saw like Ozzy Osbourne, I saw Kiss, I saw Styx, I saw Aerosmith, I saw Queen. I mean, just every band you could think of from that day. I saw them, like Fleetwood Mac, like all these bands were just like, oh my God, music is the greatest thing in the world. And I've loved music ever since. But deep, deep down in my little secret space, I like bluegrass.
Okay, hey,
My grandparents. It's like, oh, I used to hate it. I was like, oh my God, turn that music down. But now when I'm home alone, I'll put on a little bluegrass and just listen to like old music that reminds me of Tennessee.
I hear that. Yeah, I mean, I love country music. I mean, it's especially less modern stuff, but more like of the '80s and '90s. More like Brooks and Dunn era, or like Garth Brooks, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love Garth Brooks. I think Garth was probably, I don't know, in like the more modern country, I freaking love Garth Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
I loved him. But I like Johnny Cash, like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah, my piece of my soul, and I didn't like it for a long time, but I think because I'm in my 60s now, I hear that music, I'm like, oh, I can remember being with my grandmother, my grandfather, and my parents, and doing this thing. So it brings up a lot of memories. But my diehard music is the '70s.
Mm-hmm.
We had good music. We had smoked a lot of pot back then, and we listened to a lot of really good music. That's all we did. I lived in the country, and that's literally all we did. Partied and listened to music. We didn't have anything to do.
Yeah,
We had nothing to do. So you have just been so much fun today, Frank. So so again, just tell everyone how to get a hold of you, because I want to make sure that you're in the show notes 3 or 4 times. So how do people reach you specifically?
So me specifically, I can be reached just at Frank, Frank, at padsplit.com. You can also reach out directly. My phone number is 404-621-9419. I'm much better on text than calling, because I'm kind of always on calls during the day, but I will get back to you. But yeah, either way, or you can always just, of course, go to padsplit.com, and one of our much more helpful and knowledgeable sales folks can reach out to you directly too. So
nice. So at the end of every show, we have everyone that listens regularly knows I have this thing I call the 5 equities of life. And they're financial, spiritual, physical, mental, and family. So we give out an equity, and we give out an assignment. And I ask, especially if you're new to the show, I ask everyone to just do it for a week and see if it brings a little, more quality to their lives, as we're just always so busy these days. So, and everyone also knows that I truly don't know what you're going to say. So what is the equity, and what is our assignment this week?
Well, you did inspire, when you're talking earlier about people before profits, I think of that very much in sort of a sequencing thing. And, it's sort of an idea, or that is kind of very important to me, and that, the way you make profits is by serving people, right? You serve customers, you give them something that they want, you do right by them, and they reward you. And that's kind of the way that it's supposed to work. So this idea of kind of having sort of things in the right order is just sort of a way I sort of think about how I kind of order my life and try to anyway. I've got a lot going on, and a business and 3 kids and a newborn, and it's kind of so I don't know how ordered things are at the moment, but to try and just keep hanging on as a little bit as I can. I sort of do the same thing, so I don't get as much time to kind of work out as I'd like to, but the way that so I'll give you a physical equity.
Okay, physical, we love it.
For me, I like to basically, like, I like to drink beer. I like to drink coffee. In fact, I drink very, very little else, than those 2 things. But I never do either if I haven't worked out beforehand. So I never do coffee until I've had water. I never drink alcohol unless I worked out earlier that day. And I try and think about how I kind of carve those things out. So it's okay. So like, if I put something in the microwave, I do air squats in the kitchen, and it looks ridiculous. We have a bunch of windows in our kitchen, and my neighbors think I'm a psychopath. But like, that's my 30 seconds, which I can't do anything.
I love that.
For kind of knocking those, those things out. Or, I will set my meetings when I can to end like 5 minutes early. So I'll do like 1:30 to 1:55 or that kind of thing. And those 5 minutes, I'll knock out a couple pull-ups. So, but the microwave one, I think I would give as kind of the challenge for folks, where it's like,
I love that. I'm going to do that. Because what? I just stand there like this, just wait for the microwave to be done. And I did that today. I microwaved my tea before I walked downstairs for 60 seconds. I could have just done some air squats.
Exactly.
And, okay, that is, no one has ever given anything even close to that. That is a great assignment.
Now
air squats when you're microwaving or doing something that just takes a few seconds, a few minutes.
Yep.
It's nice. I think all the girls out there, we can all do a little more squats and keep our butts high.
Very important.
It is. Well, yeah, it's just been really interesting talking to you today. And I love your concept. I love your concept. I love your choice of music. I love the fact that you're coming into this and that you're doing affordable housing, because there's just so many people right now that really, truly need a service like yours. Truly. So I appreciate you being on my show today. I know we went over on time, but I'm like so interested in what you have to talk about. So I told you, sometimes I just delve in because I want to learn, and I want to tell other people, like, hey, you need to reach out over here. And gosh, I know hundreds and hundreds of landlords that would love to have a service like yours. So many. And I appreciate you also with the mindset of that people before profits. We get paid for the problems that we solve.
Yep.
And I work with people in foreclosure. I help them solve that problem and get a fresh start. And so I make a lot of money for that, but it's not about the money. It's about helping the people. And you're doing the same thing. You're helping people get into a place to live, someplace to save, a community, and especially for the single people. It's a really great idea.
Thank you.
I love it.
And
I love it.
You heard it here first.
And stars from Dwan today. Okay, so everyone, reach out again. Padsplit. Find them on social media. Email Frank at padsplit.com. Fantastic idea. And everyone also, if you're new, go to Dwanderful.com and opt in. I've got 4 free ebooks that touch a little bit on some different areas of real estate investing, and see if something trips your trigger. And do you have one single parting word of wisdom?
Do I have one single part?
Just one little final single parting word of wisdom.
Wow, I kind of
make you think on my show.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I kind of used it all up with the microwave trick.
Now that's a great life equity.
Yeah.
Just like a little tiki. Hey, take this thought with you.
So I guess for me, when I think about kind of investing in general, it's all about, like, no one wants to be the last one of the party. You never make any money that way. You need to kind of have a view that other people don't have. And one of the things where, we talked about landlords, kind of that classical mistake of thinking about the house being for them. But one of the things that I really look for in people that we're working with is, most investors haven't, if they've been in a position where they've had to rent a room or that kind of thing, it's, hey, yeah, when I was a student or when I was really young. But I wouldn't imagine doing that now at my age. Like I can't even really imagine that. And they don't have the kind of intellectual flexibility to put their, themselves in the shoes of their customer, right?
Yep.
And so if it's a bit of wisdom, it's, no matter what you're doing, it's all about, can you, solve people's problems? And to do that, you need to understand the perspective of your customer. So, in particular in real estate, it's a matter of saying, okay, well, what does my customer want, even if I'm not that customer?
Yep.
Because there are all sorts of real estate investors who are in the business of saying, I can solve a problem for people who look just like me and think just like me because I understand what they do. That's easy, and the yields are low because lots of people can do it.
Exactly.
And the opportunities for people who can do it outside of their own perspective and their own kind of soda straw kind of worldview. So whether that's a bit of wisdom or just a rant, I don't know.
No, it is. It is. Way back when I started investing, I lost a house in foreclosure, and like nobody came to help me. So when I started helping other people, I was like, listen, I've walked a mile in your shoes. I get it. So, I'm going to help you walk a mile in mine. And I do believe that you have to sometimes get out of your own box and maybe not just work with people exactly like yourself. Expand your horizons a little bit. So I'm loving that too. You are just so much fun, and you're so smart, and you're so cute.
I was always told I had a face for podcasts, so it's good.
Well, you do. You have a face for the Dwanderful podcast. Perfect. All right, everybody. We'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And remember, the truth is in the red letters. So thank you, Frank, and goodbye, everybody, and ciao.
Thank you for dropping by to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever, making real estate investment wonderful each and every time. And for more information on how to make your real estate dreams a reality, keep an eye on Dwanderful.com and be sure to become a member.